Well, hello everybody, and welcome to another edition of Hit the Pace Car post Charlotte weekend. We also had the Indianapolis 500 this weekend. This past weekend, it was the greatest day in motorsports. Even though we didn't have Monaco this year, we did have the Truck Series in the morning, which definitely provided some entertainment on Sunday this week. And also, if whether you're listening on YouTube, Spotify, please like, follow, comment, subscribe, share, do whatever you need to do. And as every week on Hit the Pace Car, I am joined by the Pace Car boys of Cory and Tyler. Cory, how are we doing here today?
No, doing good. Busy week. Ready to get back racing this weekend. Just moving along.
Tyler, how are we doing post Charlotte weekend? Looking ahead to Nashville Super Speedway.
We're holding in there, man. New week. Hopefully this week's better than the last, that's for sure.
That is for damn sure. Yeah, I really hope that this week is a lot better than last, and that's what we'll end up starting this week's version of Hit the Pace Car. You can probably tell by my voice, this is going to be a very tough episode for me. It's going to be a tough episode for all of us. We lost one of the greatest drivers in our sport, Kyle Busch, aka Shrub, aka Wild Thing, aka Rowdy, my favorite driver, and I've been a fan of this driver for 22 years, and I'd say he's been my favorite for probably the last like 20, maybe even almost 21 years. He's been top of the pedestal for me, and it's been tough for not just Kyle Busch fans, but also Kyle Busch's biggest haters coming out of the woodwork and saying how much respect they had for the guy and how great of a racer he was, how great of a father and family man he was. And I personally cannot believe that he's gone. He had such a huge impact on our sport, and he potentially could have even a bigger impact after his passing. And it's just, he has so many stats in the stat book owned to him. He's one of the biggest personalities we've ever had in our sport, and poof, just gone at the age of 41. Of course, we lost him over this last week, Rowdy. And I want to send it to the boys because I know the boys are quite fond of Kyle Busch and all the years he's been racing. I guess I'll start with Tyler on this one because, Tyler, you've been watching Kyle Busch race pretty much your entire life. Is there anything that really stands out to you from his career, from his life? Any great memories you could really think of? What will you remember Rowdy for?
I just want to start by saying I hope the NASCAR community really not just says they're going to wrap their arms around Brexton, but actually does it. Makes it their number one goal to make sure that that boy gets everything he wants and needs. If he even continues wants to race. If he
Yeah.
doesn't, I don't blame him. I just want to start by saying that. Um, Kyle Busch was my first driver. Was the guy that I loved first. He was my first Hendrick driver. He was my first guy, and I'm not gonna lie, this has probably been the hardest thing that I've been through when it comes to NASCAR. It was completely unexpected. But when it came to Rowdy, man, that guy was something else. He showed up every weekend at that racetrack, ready to roll. No matter what challenges were in front of him, he was ready to take it on, man, with the mouth of a lion. And there'll never be another man out there that replaces him, that's for sure. But yeah, greatest to ever do it, 100%.
And no one will ever be able to replace Rowdy, not on the track, not off the racetrack, and definitely not in the media. Like, he is just the way he would talk, the way he would express himself, especially when he was winning a lot. So many one-liners, so many highlight moments on the mic. Almost had like that WWE personality, and it's funny because he actually was a WWE 24/7 champion. Got it from R-Truth. Michael Waltrip being the referee. I saw that brought back to my timeline this week, and that's always fun to see, seeing Mikey and the and the ref get up and Kyle Busch taking the WWE 24/7 title, and he spoke like he was a wrestler, just a man potentially bigger than the sport in some ways, and it's sad to see him gone. Cory, what will you remember Rowdy for most? What will fans of the sport remember about him most, and what maybe should the fans really know about Rowdy that they might not already know?
Man, it's hard to answer that question because Kyle Busch was everything for NASCAR. Like, he was the young kid and then he became the veteran. He was the bad guy or the guy that everyone rooted against because, it was fun to root against him. He became the evil character that in NASCAR, the one that everyone wanted to root against because he in the limelight of his brother, who was not the best personality, I guess, in NASCAR terms. And, you find now that he didn't really want that, but he accepted it because that's what NASCAR needed at the time, and that's what the role he was given. But if I was to narrow it down to something other than all his wins and how incredible he was for the sport, is his interviews. I think his interviews were the best. If a reporter asked a dumb question, he wouldn't be afraid to call him out on it. When he finished second place, every driver today back then would say finishing second is a great day. It's a great points day, but for Kyle, it was a terrible day. He's like, I should have won that race. And no one was more angry than finishing second than Kyle. And you can just tell by all of his interviews how much he loved to race and how much he loved NASCAR and the fans. And it just sucks because you don't see that type of enjoyment and that type of love for racing vocalized anymore in NASCAR. That personality's never there anymore. So you can't replace him. You can't replace the personality. You can't replace the driver. You can't replace how open he was to being a father on the track and just having his life in the public eye his entire life. It's gonna be a long mourning period for all NASCAR fans, Rowdy fans, and the sport in general.
I couldn't agree more, Cory. Yeah, I appreciate those kind words, Cory and Tyler. Just Rowdy has such a big impact on our sport when he was in it, and he's going to have, I think, even a bigger one afterwards because this is our Dale Earnhardt, and Kyle Busch got compared to Dale Earnhardt throughout a lot of his career, and this is just kind of another thing to compare him to Earnhardt. This is our version of Dale Earnhardt. We haven't lost a full-time NASCAR driver. We lost Jason Leffler years ago, but a full-time Cup Series like superstar, we just haven't had this sort of loss since Dale Earnhardt back in 2001, and now we're in 2026, and we've lost arguably another Mount Rushmore guy of our sport. I think some people would make the argument the greatest of all time. I think that is a legitimate argument to be made as well with how many wins he had at not just the Cup Series level, but at the O'Reilly Series and the Truck Series level. He's the greatest O'Reilly Series driver of all time. He's the greatest Truck Series driver of all time. I was saying it the other day. I forget if I told either of you. I think what they should do, I don't know if NASCAR would ever do it because of sponsorships and stuff like that. But everybody already calls the O'Reilly Series the Busch Series. Why don't we call it the Busch Series, but instead of it being named after the beer, name it after Kyle Busch, one of the greatest drivers in our sport? I think that would be the best thing that NASCAR could do to pay homage to Kyle Busch. I don't know if they would ever do it just because of sponsorships and stuff like that, but I would really love to see that. I would really love to see a statue made in his honor, probably at the Las Vegas Bull Ring, because he grew up racing in Las Vegas, growing up at the Las Vegas Bull Ring. That's really where he became the great driver that he was. So I would like to see some stuff done when it comes to that. I did prepare a speech here. It took me a little bit to put together, but I did prepare a little bit of a speech here, just kind of talking to a couple people in Kyle's life, and then obviously talking to Kyle directly. I will try my best to not cry here. I can't guarantee that I won't. And there's I wouldn't say it's super lengthy, but I kind of go into about everybody here, so bear with me here. Um, to start off this, I do want to start. The first person I want to talk to when it comes to this speech is to RC, and I have it written in front of me on my screen. So if you see me looking down, it's because I'm trying to read what I wrote here. The first part here is to Richard Childress, to RC, the owner of Richard Childress Racing. To RC, thanks for everything you and your family have provided Rowdy over the last few years, including getting a couple more wins in the Cup Series, including the last race at California Auto Club Speedway, also the home of Kyle Busch's first career win in the Cup Series back in 2005 at Talladega. That way everybody can party one more time at Dega because of Rowdy. And then, of course, his last victory coming at Gateway Worldwide Technology Raceway in 2023. I didn't always agree with everything you said or did, RC, but you proved time and time and time again how great of a man you are and how much you truly cared for Kyle and his family, and you treated him like he was your own family. I appreciate you retiring the number 8. This is it's a tremendous gesture what you did, and I respected that move quite a bit. Thanks to you, RC. Thanks to Austin Dillon, Ty Dillon, Mike Dillon, and everyone at RCR that's worked with Kyle. I would like to send this next part to Coach Gibbs, to Coach Joe Gibbs. Coach, I was a child when my favorite driver was Bobby Labonte, and I saw from a young age how you treated people and how you ran a race team. Without you, Rowdy wouldn't be one of the greatest drivers of all time. Who knows if even Rowdy Nation would even exist and be as big as it is right now. Loved seeing you celebrate after his many wins in the number 18. I loved seeing you even argue with him because it just showed that you two really cared about performance and that you cared about one another. I will always hold those winning days and those championships very deep in my heart. I will always remember his times in the number 18 M&M's Toyota. To Rowdy's parents, Tom and Gay Bush, you all raised wonderful, very talented kids with Kurt and Kyle, and did everything you could to make sure that Kyle and Kurt were able to have success and show off their talents. And Kyle, he had shitloads of it. He had so much talent, more talent than most drivers could ever wish for. No one should have to watch their child die, and I'm keeping you all in my thoughts. This next part goes out to his older brother, Kurt. To Kurt, you and your baby bro had so many great battles for many years. Y'all butted heads quite a bit, but at the end of the day, y'all were family and had a relationship so strong. Even when y'all weren't on speaking terms after you wrecked each other in the All-Star race, you weren't speaking over the holidays, you still came back together as one of the best, if not the best, brother duo in the history of the sport. Your baby bro, Shrub, as you used to call him when he was young, took your lead and he learned from you, and was also very inspired by you, Kurt. You were a hero to him when he was a young kid, seeing you race in the Cup Series for Roush in that number 97. If you weren't his older brother, he probably wouldn't have been the man that he was today. And I got to scroll a little bit here, so give me a moment. Okay, so the next part here I send to Samantha Bush, Kyle Busch's wife. You are a very strong and smart woman, Samantha. I couldn't believe how tough you were before the start of this year's 600. It took incredible strength and love to do what you did in front of every single one of us. You always supported Rowdy, no matter what. You both brought out different sides of each other, the best sides of each other, and made each other better in so many ways. You all had a love I aspire to have in my own life. Two best friends who keep each other honest and true, keep each other honest and true, but still manage to have that teenage type of fresh new love even after all these years. And of course, two people that just love and breathe racing. You turned Rowdy into the mature, great dad version of Rowdy, which a lot of people became fond of, and I thought was beautiful watching from afar in real time. Keep being strong and tough. Everyone in the NASCAR community has your back. You're part of this NASCAR family. This next part goes to Kyle Busch's youngest daughter, Lennox. Lennox, you may be too young to quite understand everything that's going on right now. You may be too young to potentially understand everything your father was, and I just want to tell you that your dad, Kyle Thomas Busch, was the ultimate badass who never took anything from anybody and did everything he could to be the best at what he did. He was a mentor and an inspiration to so many, including myself. This last part before I talk about Rowdy, I gotta talk to Brexton. So let me scroll here for a second here. To Kyle Busch's oldest son, Brexton, B-Rex, Brex. I have enjoyed watching you grow right in front of my eyes, and because you're 11 years old, kid, and I've been a fan of Kyle Busch for 22 years. So you've been there for 50% of it. You're turning into quite the talented young racer yourself. I will always remember being there to see you and your dad at Florence. It was an experience for you to face off. Your dad loved you more than about everything in the world. The only thing that he may have loved more than you was watching you race, especially when you won. You're the man of the house now, and you proved that on Sunday before the 600, being such a strong little man for your mother. Everyone in that garage will help you and have your back, whether you need it or not, because you're now part of this NASCAR family. Everybody, whether they liked or disliked your dad, they respected him. I can't wait to see what B-Rex's future looks like. Rowdy wanted nothing more than to compete with you at the next level and watch your journey. And he still is. He still is watching your journey. So stay determined, because he is still watching your journey to becoming a NASCAR driver, but he's also watching your journey to become a man. Stay determined. Ignore the outside noise. Live your life. And people like me, no matter what you do, will be fans for life and cheering louder for you than ever. And now let's get into the last part where we talk to Rowdy directly. This goes out to Shrub, to Wildfang, to Rowdy, to Kyle Thomas Busch. You were like a family member to me, because you were in my house on Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays, on my television, winning races, doing your bow, and telling everyone that everything's great. Loved seeing you smash guitars, telling people to not even watch, and of course, socking Joey Logano in the face. I've been one of your biggest fans for the last 22 years, and it always felt like fate when you got into that number 18 car, because when I was a young boy, I was a fan of Bobby Labonte. He was my favorite driver, and eventually I had to look for a new one, and I saw this driver in this exact car I got right here. a young driver from Las Vegas driving the Lowe's Chevrolet in the Busch Series for Hendrick Motorsports. And I'm like, that kid right there, I love his attitude. I love how good he is. He's going to be my next guy. And then when you got released from Hendrick and went to the number 18 at Joe Gibbs Racing, I just felt like it was fate. And I decided at that point that this driver is going to be my favorite driver forever if I could make that happen. And then you went on to have your greatest year probably in your career. You won at Atlanta that year in that Snickers car. That was a great year, even though you weren't able to quite get the championship that season. Wish I could see more wins from you. I wish I could see a Daytona 500. Hell, maybe even an Indy 500 attempt. But most of all, I wish I could see you in your old age, still having that teenage type love with Samantha, seeing you proud of the life that you lived and the career that you had, and of course, being old enough to see the success of your two children. I love you, Rowdy. I love Rowdy Nation. I love your family. And I only met you once, but I'll remember that for the rest of my life. I will always be Rowdy Nation. I will never let what you did for all those years ever be forgotten or die out. I'm going to miss you being the villain and being the man in the black hat, but I enjoy to see how much everyone has loved and respected you after your passing and all the love that you've gotten over this last week, because you're one of the greatest to ever do it, and I still can't quite believe that you're gone. And I'll finish off with this. Rest in peace to Rowdy, Wild Thing, as your family would call you when you were a young racer, Shrub. Rest in peace to the great Kyle Thomas Busch of Las Vegas, aged 41. Be a badass today and get rowdy. All right. So anybody in the comments, put in whatever you want to say about Rowdy, your favorite memory, some favorite moments from him, what impact he had on the sport, because he's definitely had an impact on me. I've loved this guy for more than half my life, and I just can't believe, I still can't believe it. I'm wearing my Skittles Kyle Busch hat from the one time I met him, and he signed it. And now, yeah, I've been, if you've seen me on this show, I've worn this hat a couple of times. I kept it on the wall for quite a while, and I kept it on the wall because I wanted to preserve the signature. But then when I was going to so many races and meeting so many drivers and doing so many things, I decided, let's just take this off the wall, wear it out, and whenever the signature begins to go away, we'll try to find Rowdy as best we can and get him to sign it again. And he's unfortunately never going to be able to sign this hat again, or I'm never going to be able to meet him again and really tell him how much he mattered to me and mattered to the sport, which is heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking for me. But I'm going to try to preserve this hat. I've kind of talked with Cory and Tyler. I kind of want to do something very special for them this fall, because of course NASCAR is going to Las Vegas Motor Speedway this fall, and it'll be the first time that NASCAR goes to Kyle Busch's home track without Kyle Busch being there. So I would like to do something special for him on that day. What I want to do is throw like a party I do have a camping spot in the infield. I'm going to throw a party in the infield and try to raise some money, just have a good party, get some donations in. And what I plan on doing is donating 58% of whatever I get, the 5 for Hendrick, the 8 for RCR, 58% of everything that was donated goes to the Bundle of Joy Fund, of course, started up by Samantha and Rowdy to try to help people have kids, because I know they had a lot of struggles having kids, I think there was some slight struggles with Brexton, and then of course with Lennox, they struggled to have kids, and that's one thing they really cared about. So I'm going to throw a party in October at Las Vegas Motor Speedway. So if anybody's at Las Vegas Motor Speedway and wants to come by, that'd be great. I'm going to be in the infield. Not sure if it'll be Friday or Saturday night yet. That will come at a later point. But I just wanted to put that out to everybody that if they end up going to Las Vegas, to show up to that and donate to the Bundle of Joy Fund. And even if you don't go to that, donate to the Bundle of Joy Fund if you can, because I know that's something that Rowdy was very passionate about, and it would be a way we could all remember Rowdy. So I'm going to finish off with that there. Once again, leave anything you have to say about Rowdy, Wild Thing, Shrub, Kyle Busch in the comments. Let us know. All right, let's get to some stuff that's not going to make me want to cry my eyes out. Let's talk about the racing that we had. Well, actually, that might make me want to cry my eyes out too, because we could have had some great racing, and to distract us from Rowdy, and we just kept on getting weather kind of screwing with us the whole weekend. We had a weather-filled weekend, a bunch of rain. We had mist affect these races. We had just a bunch of weather this past weekend in Charlotte Motor Speedway, and it said it earlier in the week with the weather reports, and it just came to be true. We had, of course, the Truck Series get moved from Friday, ended up going to Saturday, ended up going to Sunday, so it ended up being a Sunday morning race for the Truck Series, and that's how we'll start off our talk on Charlotte. Well, before we actually talk about the races themselves, something new with Hit the Pacecar that we're going to start this week is I'm going to go through the top 10 results, the point standings updated after every single race weekend. So let's go through the top 10 results and the points update post Charlotte Motor Speedway weekend. So starting with the top 10 results in the Craftsman Truck Series, of course, Lane Riggs gets the victory. Maybe something would have changed if we ended up getting a couple more laps in there. Caden Honeycutt in the second place position. He had a great run. Connor Zilich was charging on fresher tires. Maybe Zilich could have taken the dub if we ended up getting a restart here. Ben Rhodes getting a fourth place. We have Gio Ruggiero rounding out the top 5. Christian Eckes had a very strong day in 6th place. Brandon Jones in 7th. Tanner Gray in 8th. You had Ricky Stenhouse Jr. in 9th, and William Sawalich rounding out your top 10 for the Craftsman Truck Series. We look over at the O'Reilly Series. Of course, Ross Chastain won that race. If we went back green, I know he wouldn't have won that race because he had all that damage after hitting the oil and smacking the wall. That race ended up getting ended at the end of stage number 2. Jesse Love getting 2nd place, 2 straight weeks with the 2nd place finish, I think, for Jesse Love. So good for 2 straight weeks, but he's been on a good run. He got a second not too long ago. He's been running a lot better the last couple of weeks. Austin Hill needed a very good run. He's honestly struggled throughout a good portion of the year. William Sawalich, once again, ending up in the top 10, this time with the top 5 in the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series. Corey Day rounding out your top 5. You had Connor Zilich getting another top 10, this time in 6th in the O'Reilly Series. Ryan Sieg getting a 7th place finish. That really helps him out in that chase battle. Cole Custer in 8th, Carson Quaffle in 9th, and then Raja Caruth rounding out your top 10. And then we look at the Cup Series top 10. Daniel Suarez getting his 3rd career victory and a very emotional win for him. Christopher Bell in 2nd, Denny Hamlin in 3rd. I think that top 3 is very fitting. Probably 3 of the most deserving drivers to win on such a special race post the death of Rowdy Busch. In 4th, we had Tyler Reddick. 5th, we had Kyle Larson. 6th, we had Ty Gibbs, who had a really great night. In 7th, we had Ryan Blaney. 8th, Joey Logano. Logano needed a decent run. It's been honestly a bad season for Logano. William Byron with the 9th place finish. And then Zane Smith, who ran really well all race long, looked very strong, rounds out your top 10. All right, now let's go to the top 3 in points and the bubble battles. In the Truck Series, Caden Honeycutt still leads the points, 347 points on the year. Lane Riggs, second in points, 38 points back. And then Lane Riggs' teammate, Chandler Smith, 39 points back from Caden Honeycutt. And then we'll look at the bubble battle. We have Ben Rhodes, 101 points behind Honeycutt in 7th. We have Jake Garcia, 134 points back in 8th. Stuart Friesen in 9th, 139 points back. And then on the bubble, we have Tyler Ankrum, 141 points back. And then the two drivers on the outside looking in, we have Daniel Hemrick in 11th, 10 points back. And then actually in a tie for 11th with them is Brendan Butterbean Queen, 10 points back. And then in the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series, Allgaier still is having a dominating season, even though he didn't have the best finish on Saturday night. 696 points out front. Jesse Love, 145 points back. And then Corey Day has moved his way into the top 3 in points, 167 points back of Justin Allgaier. And then we look at the bubble battle. Parker Retzloff, 9th in points, 308 points back of Justin Allgaier. 10th in points, we have William Sawalich, 312 points back. And 11th, we have Sam Mayer, 320 points back. And then on the bubble, we have Taylor Gray, 325 points behind Justin Allgaier. And then the two drivers on the outside looking in, we have Raja Caruth, 2 points outside of the chase in 13th. And then in 14th, we have Ryan Sieg, who's 15 points on the outside. And then we look at the Cup Series points. Tyler Reddick still leads the points, 620 points up. Not up, but 620 points total, I should say. Second in points, we have Denny Hamlin, 122 points back. Hamlin's having a fantastic season. It's just Reddick has just been that great, and he has all those wins, which is the big difference maker. We have Ryan Blaney, 174 points back, third in the standings. And then Bubba Wallace, we'll go back to the bubble battles. Bubba Wallace is 13th in points. He had such a strong start to the year, but honestly, he's been ice cold the last couple of weeks. 292 points back of his teammate Tyler Reddick. 14th in points, Shane Van Gisbergen, who ran fantastic in the Coca-Cola 600, finishing just outside the top 10, 304 points back of Tyler Reddick. 15th in points, we have Chase Briscoe, who has been strong all year, but just hasn't had the finishes he probably deserves. He's 316 points back of Tyler Reddick. And then on the bubble, we have Ryan Preece for RFK, 317 points back of Tyler Reddick. And then on the outside looking in, we have a pair of Penske drivers, as we have Austin Cindric, 15 points outside of the chase in 17th. And then his teammate, the 3-time champion, Joey Logano, 29 points behind Ryan Preece. So on Sunday morning, we had the Craftsman Truck Series at Charlotte Motor Speedway that ended up getting ended early because of the Indianapolis 500 incoming. And honestly, I wasn't super surprised about it because they are both on Fox and they don't want to steal each other's viewers and stuff like that. But I really think that they could have went back green and at least done like a green-white checkered or something like that. I know they made the determination earlier on in the day that they were going to end the race at noon, but I really hated how this race ended. Same thing with the O'Reilly race. I guess there's an argument to be made for the Cup race too, but I was just so happy with the winners, so I didn't really care all that much. But we'll get to that. But we had the Truck Series race end because of the Indianapolis 500, essentially. And I want to get the boys' thoughts on this, and I'll start with Tyler here. Tyler, how did you feel about the Truck Series race and the way it ended?
I mean, I feel like if it was any other weekend, I'd be absolutely pissed, but I can come to an actual understanding that this weekend that nobody really wanted to be at that racetrack. So I feel like everything they were doing was just to get the weekend over with.
Yeah.
And I can understand that. So, I mean, any other weekend, though, I'd be pissed. That was stupid. Why are we ending our races for something that has nothing to do with us? Like, yes, Indy is on Fox. Yes, we're trying to partner with them sometimes, but that's not our problem. If we're running a race, we're running a race. We shouldn't be ending it for something that's not even going to be at the same track. But I can also understand the sentiment of just wanting to get the hell out of there.
Yeah, I can understand that sentiment too, because I personally didn't really want there to be races this weekend, but then a couple people said, and I agree 100%, if Kyle Busch was still around, he'd be mad as hell that we're not racing. So I accepted that in that case. But yeah, I don't think a lot of people really wanted to be there. A lot of people just really felt obligated to be there throughout the weekend. So I get that. I get that sentiment for sure. But just, and I understand we're trying to work close with IndyCar because we want to have these doubleheader weekends and stuff like that, which is cool. We want to work with IndyCar, especially when it comes to Fox, because we share that broadcasting partner of Fox for the Cup Series, at least the first portion of the year, and then the Truck Series all year long. I don't know. I wasn't very fond of them deciding to end the race early. I understood why. It just seems silly to me. That it just says how much they think the Indy 500 is much bigger, and it is. It is much bigger, but I would have liked a proper finish. Cory, how did you feel about the way the Craftsman Truck Series race ended on Sunday morning?
I hated it. There's no what else to say, to be honest, because I hated it. I don't care that's the Indy 500. I know it's the biggest racing moment in racing history every year, but like if you're a real sport, you don't end a game halfway or 2/3 of the way or whatever for another sport. You move to a different channel if you have to. You do something. You complete the race. The only thing they had going for them is they went to the allotted time. But you shouldn't have to end a race because of something else that isn't considered or isn't contributing to NASCAR, isn't NASCAR. Like, I don't know. That to me, that's my opinion on it. I know they tried. I know there was a record amount of cautions. I know they only had 12 laps of green lap racing, or the longest green lap streak they had was 12 laps. It was just abysmal. Like, you can't end a race like that. And yeah, it ended under caution, which is even worse. But I don't know. I'm not for any sport, let alone NASCAR, a sport I love, just calling it 80% of the way because they want to. And then the rest of the weekend wasn't any better, to be honest, other than Sunday. But like, yeah, I don't know. You can give me excuses, but they're excuses. They're not reasons. They don't benefit the sport anyways. You'll never find another sport calling it over at 80% of the way. And not for rain, not for weather, not for night, just because the TV said, yeah, we want to cut it at 12. That's bullshit, and that should never happen.
Yeah, I agree 120%. I think probably my biggest issue with it was if the race was starting, like the Indy 500 was starting at like 12:05 or 12:10, or the green flag was dropping like right after that or something, I still would have been upset and I still would have been mad because I want them to finish the race. But I at least would have understood a little bit. They ended this race early. That way we could see the big like pre-race festivities. Like we can hear the song. We can hear the song. What was it? Back home again in Indiana. That way we could hear that and hear the national anthem and all that stuff, which is cool. It's not like I don't want to see that stuff. And the way they have the flyover with the what are they called, Cory? The helicopters. What are those helicopters called again?
The
When they're
Chinooks.
Blackhawks.
Blackhawks.
They used the Blackhawks, not the Chinooks this time.
Oh, to be honest, I missed that one. I saw, but usually they use Blackhawks.
They used the
Well,
Chinooks last year.
Well, whatever it was, with the way they do that, I think is really cool. They had Gronk up there waving and everything. It's cool, it's cool what they do. But we're ending a race early just so we can see pre-race festivities for a completely different series. I don't get it. I really don't. That's a TV thing. That's not NASCAR making that call, because I know NASCAR wouldn't make that call. That's a Fox deal where they're like, yeah, we're not playing this race after this point. Like, if you want to, you either fit in this window or you race on Monday. I think that was probably the thing, and they're like, all right, we'll try to fit into that window, because they'll get a lot more viewers on a Sunday morning compared to a Monday morning. So, especially for the truck
I mean, how
series.
would you feel if you paid for a ticket? How would you feel if you paid for a ticket and then all of a sudden you show up and they say, hey, it's going to end at 12, no matter how many laps are done? Like, and then it ended that way. You didn't pay 70% the price to see the race. You paid 100% the price to see 100% of the race, and you didn't get it. And that's just for the truck series. Like
Yeah.
that, I don't know. I just feel like the fans got robbed, and we're one of the few sports where we like weather. I get it, all that other stuff, but that one had no excuse. The next race started 6 hours later.
Yeah. Yeah, I get that as well. Because, yeah, if you think about it, the fans that wanted to go to the Truck Series race, and maybe they only bought a ticket for the Truck Series race, they didn't buy a ticket for the rest of the week. They showed up on Friday, dealt with a bunch of rain. They showed up on Saturday, never got any racing, dealt with rain. And then they show up on Sunday morning because I'm not sure if they're even letting Coca-Cola 600 ticket buyers in Sunday morning. So it was just those Friday ticket holders that were in there Sunday morning and didn't even get to watch a full race, and kind of dragged him around for a couple of days. I agree with you, Corey. I understand weather and stuff like that, but I would be trying to make some refunds, or at least at bar minimum try to give them some sort of credit that could be used on their account or something. Like here's like 40 $50 credit to use for a future ticket or something like that. At least something, because that's kind of ridiculous. That's kind of ridiculous. But let us know your thoughts in the comments. How did you feel about the Truck Series race ending a little bit early because they were trying to get into the Indy 500 pre-race ceremonies and wanted everybody to watch that? Let us know your thoughts about that in the comments. All right, let's move on to our race winner, Lane Riggs. Lane Riggs has been making a name for himself in the Truck Series over the last couple of years. He's obviously one of the championship favorites this year. I think it's him, Honeycutt, and Chandler Smith. I'd say those are probably the three championship favorites. You can maybe throw a couple other drivers in there that might be able to compete later on, but those are the three primary guys I would say right now competing for the championship. And Lane Riggs got the job done. He got the job done technically. I feel like they should have went back racing. I think they should have done a green white checker to finish that at bar minimum. I would have liked for them to do the whole entire race, but they had a late caution at the end of this thing. I think there was like 3 minutes left when that last caution came out, and they were just unable to get back going before the clock ran out. So Lane Riggs got the job done in the University of Charlotte, the Charlotte 49ers machine. I know he was really happy about winning in that truck. Seeing a very emotional celebration. I would say one of the most emotional moments we've seen throughout the weekend, and it really showed how big of an impact Rowdy had, because to my knowledge, Rowdy and Lane Riggs didn't really have any relationship. They probably met on a few occasions, but they didn't really have a friendship or any sort of relationship, not even a mentor-mentee sort of relationship. But it really shows how big of an impact Rowdy made on the sport and how much of an inspiration he is, especially to some of our younger drivers, because I would consider Lane Riggs to be one of our younger drivers in the sport that has a lot of potential. And he obviously looked up to Rowdy, and it was a great celebration from him, and just a good moment for Lane Riggs on Sunday morning. I want to hear the thoughts from the boys. I'll start with Tyler on this one. How did we feel about Lane Riggs getting another victory, championship favorite, it looks like? Plus, how do you feel about his celebration, his reaction to the win, and his reaction to Rowdy?
Man's definitely on a heater right now, and it's good to see. I mean, he's got some emotion every time he gets out of that car. So if there's anybody I want winning, it's somebody that's showing that kind of emotion. I mean, he got out of the car and really gave a good celebration to Rowdy, really was emotional from the beginning, and that means a lot. But man, that kid's on a heater. I really think he's going to be a championship favorite this year because he's got his head tucked down. He's figured something out. That's for sure.
He really does. I think he's really figured out a lot over the last couple of years since he's came into the sport. I think he came into the sport a little bit raw, definitely had a lot of speed. I wouldn't say he was out there causing accidents, but he just couldn't really put together a whole race. I think he can do that at this point. And yeah, hearing him remember Kyle a little bit, he said one of his few interactions with Rowdy It was I forget which track he said it was, but it was pre-race. They were doing pre-race ceremonies, and Kyle was talking to him about like, hey, I raced with your dad, and now I'm racing with you. I feel old. Of course, his dad was Scott Riggs, Lane Riggs' dad, Scott Riggs. Uh, and I thought that was pretty cool. At least had a little bit of interaction with Rowdy over the years, which is cool. But Cory, how do we feel about Lane Riggs' season so far? Potential championship favorite, and how do you feel about his celebration and reaction to Rowdy?
I think he's doing awesome. I mean, I think you and me, I think we're all pretty good fans of Lane Riggs. I really like Lane Riggs. I would like to see him win the championship. I think his celebration was awesome. The first one to do the bow, or no, Ross did the bow, but
Yeah,
the
technically, yeah.
bow he did, the emotion he showed, like it's it's awesome to see. And like he had such a little impact or such little like interaction with Kyle Busch, and yet you could tell the loss of Kyle Busch impacted him so much. It just is an olive branch of how much Kyle is going to be missed. Like you could talk about all the sports center, all the sports networks, all the news networks, all the talk show hosts everywhere around the world was like, no way. Like he was always so nice to me. That's not what was portrayed in NASCAR all the time. But that's who he was. He cared about the sport. Everyone that's growing up in racing knows Kyle Busch. Everyone in growing up in racing wants to have half the career or a third or a tenth of the career Kyle Busch had. And just seeing the emotion like that, I think he was really the first one to show that huge emotion on the weekend that made us really relate to somebody. Like we saw that everyone's going through pain, everyone's going through it. But Lane Riggs got to win and dedicate it straight to Rowdy, and that's what we all needed to see. We all wanted to see, and we're all happy for him and rooting for him now. Lane Riggs definitely earned some fans that day.
Yeah, I definitely think he did. I think he earned a lot of fans that day. I've liked Lane Riggs for a while, but I liked what he did. I liked the way he celebrated, the way one thing I've always liked about him, and I think Tyler talked about it a little bit. Lane Riggs just always kind of shows how much passion he really has for his craft. He has so much passion for NASCAR. He has so much passion for racing in general. And it's just good to see a guy that really cares about this. And it's not like it's not like other people don't care. I'm not saying that these other drivers don't care, but a driver that just puts his heart and soul into it. And you can tell almost every time he talks, whether he's upset or pissed off or whether he's just had a win, because he probably would have been emotional even if Kyle Busch hadn't passed. He still would probably be a little bit emotional because that's just who Lane Riggs is. He really cares about this. He grew up in NASCAR with his dad, Scott Riggs, being in NASCAR for many years. Raced the number 10 car in the Cup Series for quite a bit for Everham and that Valvoline machine. So he's been part of the sport for a long time. I always remember the Nesquik number 10 that Riggs ran too. That was a great scheme. But yeah, Lane Riggs, he has a bright future in the sport. He's one of the next ones up, I would say. I wouldn't put him as high up as like a Corey Heim, for example, but he's on that next level. I would say he's on that next level, and I think it's a matter of time before we see him at the Cup Series level. I do think he makes it to the Cup Series level at some point. Don't know when that will be. Probably not next year, probably a couple years from now, but I am going to be watching him this year and see if he can compete for the championship. He's obviously going to have to compete with his own teammate of Chandler Smith, and I really think that Caden Honeycutt is going to be a big threat for that championship as well. And there could be some others thrown in there. But let us know your thoughts in the comments. How do you feel about Lane Riggs getting another victory, winning at Charlotte on Sunday morning with the Truck Series? All right, that will have us move into the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series, where we ended another race under controversy. The O'Reilly race got delayed a couple of hours because of rain. Eventually, they really finally got going. It was getting late. They had a late caution due to like oil on the track. It sounded like we had some oil on the track. And we had a bunch of people go flying up
You
in
had
the
a
wall.
car blow up and oil hit the track and everybody hit the wall.
Yeah, it reminded me a lot. I forgot. I think it was Denny that said it. It reminded me so much of Daytona all those years ago when they all went into the corner. They went flying into the wall. Obviously, the first thing that really came to my mind was when Rowdy was leading at Loudon, leading at New Hampshire, and he hit the rain and went flying up into the wall. And then, of course, after that, he did his legend. After he went flying into the wall after the rain, he did his legendary bump to the pace car that got who paid homage to that on Sunday? Was that Briscoe that did that, or Reddick? Who did that? Did
Reddick.
you
That was
Reddick?
Tyler.
That was Reddick. Yeah, I thought somebody bumped the pace car during pre-race to kind of pay homage to Rowdy. But yeah, that after Rowdy went into the rain in 3 and 4 at New Hampshire, he went flying into the wall, and a couple other people did the same thing and ended their day. Rowdy could have gotten another win on that day. I always remember that day. But yeah, a bunch of people went flying up into the wall, including I think our race leader Ross Chastain, Sheldon Creed got some pretty heavy damage. A lot of cars got involved in that, and then they ended up running the next what did you say, Cory? Like 17 laps, something like that. Was that what it was? 17.
Correct. It was lap 73 of the caution. Lap 90 was when the race was called.
Yeah, so they ran a bunch of laps under caution because it was in the mist. It was a very weird sort of situation. It was not really raining. There was no rain on the radar. It was just super wet fog. It was just like a pure mist. And I'm not talking about the mist like Stephen King. I'm talking about pure mist on the racetrack. And Denny was making some very valid points in the booth during this time. He's like, if they want to continue to race, they need to keep the cars on the racetrack racing. They ran all those laps under caution. Then they decided to bring all the cars down pit road. And at that point, they began to lose the racetrack. And it was also so late, so they weren't going to really do any work on the racetrack. So they ended up handing the win to Ross Chastain, who was one of the best cars all night, had a great night. If we got any more racing into this, probably wouldn't have won. Allgaier kind of got screwed. I don't think Allgaier was the only one, but I think there was a couple of guys who got screwed by coming down pit lane during this caution, and they never went back racing, which is something NASCAR has tried to fix over the last couple of years because we've had a couple of incidents over the years with stuff like this happening, and yeah, that was very unfortunate. I don't know which I was the way each of these races ended. I don't know which one I was more mad about. I might give the edge to the O'Reilly race just because they ran all those laps under caution to just essentially make the race official. They made the race official at that point, and they weren't going to go back racing. They ran all those laps under caution. I hate it when they run all those laps under caution. Yeah, I was very disappointed with the way this race ended. I don't want to get the boys' thoughts on this. Tyler, how do we feel about the way the O'Reilly Series race ended on Saturday night?
O'Reilly Series race was extra frustrating because that was just track cleanup that they just couldn't get under control. Like, for some reason, every time the dude would hit the line to go clean up the oil, he would miss it by like, I don't know, like 5, 6 car lengths. Like, I don't understand what the issue was or why he couldn't get the fucking truck lined up. But we spent all that time under caution because of track cleanup. So it was extremely frustrating because it was their own fault for it happening. And then they pulled him off the track, didn't keep the track hot. I don't know. It was all bad. It was bad. It was a whole mess with that one.
Yeah, that was just bad track management. I would definitely agree with that. A lot of bad track management, and when we got the heavy mist, I truly think at that point they were just like, let's just end this race. Let's just make it official. It's so late. We all want to go home. This was also the first like full length race that we had after Rowdy's passing, so I think that was probably on the mind as well. I think there was a lot of factors that went into this. I think the biggest one though was probably because it was so late, and what you're saying, Tyler, I think was a big factor as well. There was just horrible track management at the end of this race, unfortunately. Cory, how do we feel about the way this race ended on Saturday night?
I hated it again. I was furious. I just they did 90 out of 200 laps, and they had over 20 caution laps. A bunch of stage caution laps like they always do. Then 17 plus caution laps due to mismanaging the oil spill. I get it was due to fog, and it was not sprinkling slash like misting the entire time. But man, that's the best ticket in town right now. The O'Reilly race is the best race of the weekend consistently. It's the most entertaining race of the weekend consistently. And it got mismanaged the entire time. Like, I don't know. It wasn't even a race in my mind. They probably got, 30 green flag laps in, maybe? I don't know.
And those
It
laps
just
were
didn't
great.
feel like a race. Yeah, I know. And when they were racing, it was the most entertaining series. But we
Yes.
got 40 laps out of 90 or whatever it was. It was something like that. It was 40 laps out of 90, 43, whatever it was. And that's embarrassing when that's your most entertaining series. And they called it official. They didn't try to reschedule it. They didn't try to squeeze it in after the truck race at 12. They didn't try to I know I'm just kidding like that would actually happen. But like it's it's an important series. NASCAR is looked at as the most important racing series in America, and yet we do this shit when it's our like Coke 600 weekend. It's one of our biggest weekends in the sport. We had someone that one of our most iconic drivers passed away, and I feel like we mismanaged the whole weekend. I think Sunday was managed right, but I know that whole weekend pissed me off. I think we were all emotional a little bit going into that weekend. We wanted to be distracted by something, and yet we got nothing on Friday and an embarrassment on Saturday. And that's just the easiest way to call it. There's a million excuses that I understand, but it's just like if you knew you were maybe going to get a couple laps in or maybe get halfway, you should just not run the race. Like I don't know. It was just infuriating. To me there wasn't an Xfinity race or oh my god. There wasn't an O'Reilly race this weekend. It just was a 90 lap exhibition.
Pretty much. It's what's really unfortunate about the whole weekend. I'd say the Cup race obviously faced the least amount of issues, just because it kept clear most of the time. But when the track was clear of rain and we were green flag racing, I thought all three races were fantastic. We saw great racing in all three races. We saw a tire fall off. We saw strategies when you were able to work them in there. It was just it was great. Charlotte always puts on well, not always, but over the last couple of years, it's really just put on a phenomenal show with the way the track is aged, with the way all three vehicles react to the racetrack. It's just great racing all weekend if they were on the track. But that was the problem. We just had rain affect all three races, and I definitely think the Indianapolis 500 being on Sunday definitely played a big factor, not just into the Truck Series race, but also into what you're saying, Cory, when it comes to the O'Reilly Series race. Because at that point, you're potentially having three races for NASCAR on Sunday that probably aren't going to get nearly as many viewers as they usually would, especially for the trucks in the O'Reilly Series because of the Indy 500 and also it being at a different time than when it usually is on. So I think the Indy 500 played a very big factor into what we saw happen at the end of the truck race and in the end of the O'Reilly race, because they didn't want to face against the Indy 500, and it's also a broadcast partner with Fox, and they didn't want to ruffle any feathers over there. When it comes to the Truck Series decision, I think that was purely Fox. I don't think NASCAR really had much of a choice there. But I do think the O'Reilly Series race was probably NASCAR's decision, because they knew they probably would have had to have run the whole race, not the whole race, but the whole second half of the race during the Indianapolis 500 to fit it in. That's the only place they could have put it, or they could have put the O'Reilly race on Monday morning, and I don't think it would have gotten any viewers there either. So I think they were just trying to do what they thought was best at the time, and I don't think that's what was best. And I think we all kind of agree that that's not what was best. But let us know your thoughts in the comments. How did you feel about the way they ended the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series race? But we did have a winner. We did have a winner. Probably, arguably, shouldn't have been the winner because if we went back racing, he probably wouldn't have won the race. But he did have one of the best cars all day. I really liked the way Ross talked about Rowdy throughout the weekend. He was interviewed about Rowdy, I think 3 or 4 times. One of those times was on I forget which news channel it was, but one of the Charlotte local channels. He was talking about how he looked at Kyle Busch as his hero growing up and stuff like that. And I really liked everything he had to say about Rowdy this weekend. Definitely not as emotional as the Lane Riggs celebration, and definitely not as emotional as the Daniel Suarez celebration, but a celebration nonetheless. And he was technically the first winner after Rowdy's passing. He did the bow in victory lane. It was really cool to see Ross win. I liked seeing him do the bow in victory lane. I'm pretty sure you saw it, Tyler. He did the bow in victory lane, and he was like, "This is for Rowdy," and did the bow. And then right after he did the bow, he's like, "All right, this one's for me." And he gets the watermelon and smashes it right after. I thought that was pretty cool the way he celebrated. I'm gonna send it to the Ross the Boss Chastain, the Melon Man super fan, because I consider Tyler to be a Ross Chastain super fan. How did we feel about Ross essentially getting the first win after Rowdy's passing?
Appreciated how he handled it. Like you said, I mean, he did his bow. He made sure that he paid respects to Rowdy, and then he was like, "Give me my watermelon." So, I mean, you gotta love Ross. He's a great guy, and
He
there's
is.
probably nobody. There's probably nobody better than to win that race and just give him the respect he deserves.
Yeah. I definitely had some people I really wanted to win each of these races just because I knew of their connection to Rowdy. I think I put it on my ex, but I was pulling for Taylor Gray pretty hard in that race just because his crew chief was Jason Ratcliffe, and Ratcliffe was Kyle Busch's crew chief for a long time. Got over 30 wins with Kyle Busch as his driver, so I would have liked to see Ratcliffe go to victory lane, and of course, it being the Joe Gibbs Racing number 54, which Kyle Busch had so much success in that number 54 on the O'Reilly Series level. I would have really liked to see him go to victory lane, but Ross, I don't have any problems with it. Ross definitely looked at Rowdy as a big inspiration. I liked his celebration. And it's also just good for Ross in general, just because Ross, I wouldn't say Ross has had a bad season. I wouldn't really put it all on Ross because Trackhouse, I think, has struggled as a whole throughout most of the year. I think there's been some good weeks and some bad. And we're going into a good track for Ross this week at Nashville. I think he just really needed maybe an extra pep in his step when it comes to his on-track ability, because I think we all know that Ross Chastain is a fantastic driver. I think he has the potential to potentially be a Cup Series champion one day if he's in the right equipment and he does the right things. I really think that highly of Ross, and it's been a little bit of I wouldn't say, like I said, I wouldn't say it's a bad year, but it just hasn't been nearly as good as it really should be for Ross this year. So it's cool to see him win. Cory, what were your thoughts on Ross Chastain getting the win in the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series?
I was happy for him. I mean, I think we were all hoping for more racing. I won't go on that tangent again, but I was happy it was a non full time driver to get rewarded that win, and it was also Ross Chastain to get that win. I think we're all fans of Ross. Ross is awesome, and the way he remembered to do the bow, like you said, I misspoke earlier and said that Lane said did it first, but Ross did it first, and Ross did his celebration with the watermelon, and yeah, I think it was a great race when it was green, and Ross getting the victory is awesome. And like you said, he's not having the best of luck right now on Sundays, and I think all of Chevy's going through it. Hendrick's starting to get better. Chase was able to get a win or two this year so far, so I think honestly Chevy's taking Trackhouse and Chevy are taking a huge hit right now with the new body and still trying to learn it,
Yeah.
but they're starting to get some momentum. So I think Ross is going to start turning it up for the last half of the year.
I hope so. I hope that Ross could really pick it up. And overall, I think Trackhouse looked pretty good in the Coke 600, especially Shane. Shane was running top 5, top 10 all race long. He was passing Denny Hamlin and Christopher Bell at points in this race. He looked really impressive in that Coke 600. I think Shane has really figured out the ovals at this point. But yeah, Ross the Boss Chastain gets the victory in the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series, and we'll have to see if he can turn it around in his Cup Series campaign and make the chase and maybe compete for a championship. We'll have to see what goes on with all of that. But let us know your thoughts in the comments. How do you feel about Ross the Boss Chastain winning at Charlotte Motor Speedway on Saturday night for the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series? All right, let's move on to let's move on to the Indy 500 before we talk about Sunday, because I do want to briefly talk about the Indianapolis 500. We aren't an IndyCar channel. We don't talk about IndyCar. I wouldn't say I'm a diehard IndyCar fan, but I watch almost every week. I try to keep up with what's going on in the IndyCar series for the most part. Like I said, not a diehard, so don't know every person, don't know everybody's story or whatever, but the Indianapolis 500 on Sunday was phenomenal. It's a great race. It was one of the best Indy 500s I've ever seen, and I think it's in competition for potentially the greatest finish in Indy 500 history. It was the closest finish. I would always argue that J.R. Hildebrand smacking the wall off of 4, and then Dan Weldon going around him to win the race on that final lap. I always felt bad for Hildebrand, because that you're about to win the Indianapolis 500 and you smack the wall off the final corner on the final lap when you can see the checkered flag in the air. I always thought that was the greatest finish ever. I still haven't decided which finish I think is better, but what we had on Sunday was at least in competition for that, because like I said, it was the closest finish. We had Felix Rosenqvist have a fantastic run through 3 and 4, do one of the most impressive moves I've ever seen. He was able to make it stick on the high side in 3 and 4, complete the pass, and then had a massive run off of turn 4 on David Malukas, who was searching for his first career win in the IndyCar series, and it could have been the Indianapolis 500 for Penske. What a moment that could have been for Malukas. First career win for Penske at the Indianapolis 500, the racetrack that Roger Penske himself owns. That could have been, what a moment that could have been. But I think we got provided even a better moment just because of how amazing this finish was. Felix Rosenqvist able to take the dub in the Indianapolis 500 in just exciting fashion. I'm gonna send it to the boys real quick on this one. I'll start with Cory on this one. Cory, how did we feel about the finish in this Indianapolis 500?
That was the best finish of the weekend. In my opinion, it was the best Indy 500 finish. It was
Yes.
a legendary call, and what a final lap. He went 75, 80%, honestly 90% of the entire racetrack in the
high side.
non-preferred lane, side by side, and he managed to win it at the line. That is legendary. That is awesome. Shout out Morgan Wallen for getting a win and not even making a comment about it. Like, that was a legendary day.
Yeah, that was awesome the way that last lap was ran. Because I would say, it's tough to say. I would say when you're side by side, I would say the high lane is a little bit better. But the thing is that he was side by side on the high lane. Like, you don't go wheel to wheel for like a whole lap at Indy. That's just not. You're lucky to get through one corner, let alone a set of corners or a whole lap. Like, it was just amazing car control. He obviously had a fantastic car with Meyer Shank. I think that's the name of the team. Meyer Shank, of course. Elio Castroneves over there. He's had some success over there the last couple of years. Now obviously he's one of the higher ups over there, even though he is still racing from time to time. Elio Castroneves. So that was a really cool win for Felix and for everybody over there. And just a great moment. Just a great moment for him and a great finish. Tyler, how did you feel about the finish of the Indianapolis 500?
That's the best finish I think we've ever seen in Indy. So hopefully they can stick to that. I think if Indy can get more races, more finishes like that, I think they'd have more fans. So honestly, it was a great race.
Yeah, people here in the States are like, NASCAR is definitely the preferred motorsport here in the States when it's IndyCar versus NASCAR. But when you look on the worldwide spectrum, IndyCar is more popular, and I think that's because people here in the States really like We like our exciting finishes. We like our oval racing. And I think a lot of IndyCar fans have wanted to see more oval racing because over the last couple of years, they've kind of went road course happy. They're doing more road courses than really ever before. Not really doing a lot of ovals anymore. They don't go to Homestead anymore. They don't go to Pocono or Michigan or Las Vegas or Texas. They don't go to any of these places anymore, unfortunately. So we won't really see a lot of oval racing when it comes to the IndyCar series anymore. And I think we need to continue to add ovals to the schedule because these cars provide such great racing at ovals, especially these really fast tracks like Indy. Like I would like to see them go. Like I don't know if I would like. I don't know. I would like to see them go back to Michigan just because of how great those races were. Those were like the best IndyCar races, period. But that track is just so dangerous for those cars. So I would understand maybe not going back to Michigan. It's a little bit too fast at Michigan for those cars. But I would like to see like a Pocono. Like Pocono would be really cool in those cars because we see how they race around Indy. They've raced at Pocono before. I would love to see them go back to Pocono and maybe a couple other tracks like a Pocono. I can't really think of anything that's really like a Pocono or an Indy though. Something that's just really big, but at the same time you got to slow down a lot in the corners. Michigan, it's pretty much a super speedway to those cars. So I don't know if I would like to see them go back to Michigan, even though it would put on a hell of a show. But nonetheless, we had a fantastic Indianapolis 500, a great race. We didn't really have any weather affect it, which is cool. We don't usually see that from Indy. So that like everything I saw with the Indianapolis 500 was just fantastic. I love the Indianapolis 500. It's one of my favorite races of the year. I think it's the most important race of the year. I think it's the number one race. I think it's the number one race that everybody wants to win. It's the number one race that everybody wants to compete in, and we had a fantastic finish. But let us know your thoughts in the comments. How did you feel about the finish of this year's Indianapolis 500 and our winner, Felix Rosenqvist from Sweden? All right, let's get to the Coca-Cola 600. Let's get to Sunday. I do want to talk about the race. I do want to talk about Prime, and of course, I want to talk about our winner. I forgot to really mention this before we got started here, but I do want to talk about what we had in the pre-race, and I kind of touched upon a little bit of this during my speech that I had at the beginning of the episode about Kyle Busch and his family and everybody that really was super close to him. But what we had in this pre-race was one of the most powerful, maybe the most powerful, heart-touching, heartbreaking thing I have ever seen in my life. And it was clearly meant to be somewhat of a surprise because it seemed like to me that the booth didn't even know that this was happening. They were kind of reacting in real time, like how a lot of us were. First of all, you had Kyle Busch's parents, Kurt and his wife. I think his wife's name is Ashley. I could be wrong about that, but I think his new wife, his name is Ashley. They all showed up pre-race wearing the 8 hats. Kurt Busch has a bunch of white roses and puts those 8 white roses on the number 8 pre-race. I even noticed, because I saw a couple of people talking about it, that those 8 white roses remained on that number 8 throughout the entire race, plus after it started raining after the race as well, even deep into the night when the track was empty, there was still those 8 white roses on that number 8 that NASCAR painted in the infield. That was very powerful. I know Kurt has been going through a lot in his life. He's been going through some things that we don't quite know about, but there's definitely some demons in there from everything we've seen from Kurt over his life. So I'm thinking about Kurt quite a bit right now because I am very worried about Kurt, and I'm hoping that he's okay because I know he was already dealing with a lot, and what happened to his baby brother it's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking. So we saw that. We saw his parents come out. We saw Kurt and his wife come out and pay their respects, and I just thought that was super awesome. And then you saw the commentators plus the cameras kind of reacting to it because the camera's like, wait, is that who I think it is? And it was Samantha Busch and Brexton Busch just showed up in front of a crowd of people, and They had Steve O'Donnell come out, and Steve O'Donnell, he is just within this last week, he has talked more as a CEO than we've had anybody. Like, he's talked more over this last week than what we had really any of the France family talk over the last like 20, 30 years. And he clearly cares about the people. He clearly cares about the sport. So Steve O'Donnell, you're okay with me, bud. You've earned me 120% because the amount of respect and love you've shown not just for Kyle, but for this sport over the last couple of days, last week or so has been fantastic. And honestly, I probably should have included you in my speech as well, but uh, awesome what Steve O'Donnell has done. But he gave a great sort of speech in front of the crowd of drivers and NASCAR people, and you saw people in that crowd bawling their eyes out. And then you see Samantha and Brexton, and Brexton's just being the toughest little man he could possibly be. While you can't really hear Samantha because she's obviously not wearing a mic or anything, but you could tell by her face that she's not just crying, she's doing almost that scream sort of cry where she's just completely losing it. And it was one of the most saddest. I'm about to start crying again right now just thinking about it. It was one of the most heartbreaking, like saddest things I've ever seen. Even Lennox was there. Lennox wasn't in front of the crowd, probably because she is 4 years old. She is quite young, and they wanted it to be a certain moment. And then eventually, I don't know who it was. It might have been Samantha's mom, Kyle Busch's mother-in-law, or something like that. But somebody was holding Lennox and brought her over later. But I just want to talk about how powerful and heartbreaking that pre-race was, how surprising it was, how strong that was, because I don't think any single one of us ever thought that we were going to see Samantha come out that soon. Obviously, we haven't heard from Samantha personally. We obviously haven't heard from Brexton personally. We don't need to right now, but just for them to show that sort of strength, for Steve O'Donnell to give the speech that he did and say what all of us are thinking, that everybody in that garage, everybody on every team, everybody up in the grandstands has their back. We're their family. They're part of the NASCAR family forever, whether they like it or not. We care about all of them, and it was just extremely heartbreaking, and it made me cry. I was crying watching that, and I'm about to cry right now thinking about it because it was so powerful. I felt so bad for Samantha. Samantha was just losing it, and Braxton was just the toughest 11-year-old kid I've ever seen. And then I gotta give some props to another tough young man, and Owen Larson. Walked up to Braxton and just tried to console him as best he can, because those two are good friends, and they're probably going to be friends for the rest of their lives. And I thought that in itself, I thought was very powerful as well. Seeing Owen do that for Brexton when they're both just so freaking young is just it was crazy. It was crazy to see. It was awesome to see. It was heartbreaking to see. It kind of checked every single box of emotion that you could possibly think of. And everybody in those grandstands were probably crying their eyes out. A lot of people in that garage that were standing behind Samantha, Brexton, Kurt and his wife, and of course Kyle and Kurt's parents, were a lot of tears during that pre-race. I heard Junior get choked up pretty much the whole pre-race, whether they were talking about Kyle Busch or not. I was hearing a lot of cracks in Junior's voice. Junior cares about the sport probably more than anybody, and he's garnered a friendship with Kyle over the years. Hearing all the drivers talk about Kyle, not just that morning, but throughout the whole weekend. We had all the rain delays. They even asked all the O'Reilly and Truck Series driver about Kyle all weekend. So that was just some really deep stuff. I want to get the boys' thoughts on this. I'll start with Tyler. How did we just feel about the powerful pre-race that we had with Samantha and Brexton and Kurt and Kyle and Kurt's parents? coming out and obviously not saying anything. They don't have to, but the fact that they even showed face was just incredibly strong and powerful. And then also, how do you feel about the words that were spoken from Steve O'Donnell and maybe even any sort of comments from drivers that you heard throughout the weekend that really stand out to you? I know Brad's comments stood out to me quite a bit because Brad wanted to start a friendship with Kyle, and it seemed like they were becoming friends, and he'll never be able to see that out. Of course, everything with Bubba and Suarez, how they kind of made Bubba and Suarez's careers and stuff like that. Just what are your thoughts on all that, Tyler?
So for me, I know from listening to Junior, he said that they had, I think, 5 minutes warning of letting them know that the family had even showed up. So put that into perspective with everything that Steve had to say, with the way everybody handled everything, was beyond gracious. Steve had all the right words. The man has proved over the last couple months,
I
not
love
just the
that,
last
man.
couple of weeks, but he's proved over the last couple months that he deserves to be in the spot he is, and that he really does care about NASCAR being around and being as strong as it possibly can be. So Steve pulling that off and straight out of his ass, because he didn't get much more of a warning than they did. So if the booth got five
I
minute
think he
warning,
freestyled
Steve
that.
probably got
I think he
15.
freestyled that.
Yeah, he freestyled all of that. So for him to come off the cuff and just be spot on and not miss a moment was huge. Um, the whole Larson family, Owen definitely showed his face there, but the whole Larson family was the first one to kind of walk up and acknowledge the Bush family, which from what I was seeing. So that was huge in its own. It's sad to see that none of these drivers are really going to get to be as close as they wanted to be with him on his softer years, like we've all said. I mean, these following past couple years has been his soft years, and he's just now getting everybody in, letting everybody get to know who he is, and it's sad that everybody's not going to get to enjoy that side of him. But I hope that people like Kyle Larson and people that have spent time with him and his son and all of that, really take that to heart and keep pushing all of those and what he needs.
Yeah, it was just such a beautiful way to do that. Like I said, it was heart wrenching for sure, but it was also just incredibly powerful and incredibly beautiful what we saw. And yeah, Steve, I love that man now. I've been a little weary about Steve O'Donnell because of some of the text messages that had happened last year with him and Steve Phelps and a couple other people. I was definitely not fully sold on Steve O'Donnell. I know that he cares about the sport, but I wasn't necessarily. I was sold on Steve O'Donnell, the guy that's in NASCAR, but I wasn't quite sold on Steve O'Donnell, the man. And I love that man now. He has my respect and he has my support. He has all my respect and all my support until he loses it, which could happen. He could do something that makes me go the other way on that. But for now, I love that man. That was, and I do think it was. I think it was off the cuff. Obviously, I think there was probably some thoughts that he of things he wanted to say that were already in there, and then he used those. But I do think a lot of that was off the cuff, freestyled, whatever way you want to put it. And I just a lot of respect there, and just yeah, the whole Larson family, not just Owen for sure. They were right there front row, and they walked up. Like I saw Caitlin out there. It was just really powerful stuff in that pre-race. Cory, how did we feel about that pre-race with Rowdy's family and how powerful of a moment that was, and what what does Steve O'Donnell's words, not just Steve O'Donnell, but all the comments we saw all weekend long really mean to you?
I want to start off by saying I think everything NASCAR did for the whole weekend to honor Kyle Busch was great. Putting his number in the infield. Friday they talked about him even though we didn't have a race. Saturday they talked about him all day even though we didn't have a race. Sunday was dedicated to him. Every race win was dedicated to him. The whole weekend was about him. Driver introductions. Michael McDowell volunteered to be the first one to go in there and get interviewed because no one wanted to be there. No one wanted to be there. They were all there sad. Ryan Blaney showed emotion. Chase Elliott showed emotion. all the drivers were there mourning in the public eye. And that deserves credit. And that shows how much of a family NASCAR and that garage is. And what they did on Sunday was awesome. And like Steve O'Donnell, I felt like everything we were hoping to hear is what came out of his mouth. And with a 5 or 10 minute warning, he nailed it. Like I saw public eyes talking about how what he said was so impactful for people that don't even watch NASCAR on a regular basis. And we're sitting there as fans who have to look at the race every Sunday and know that Kyle Busch isn't there anymore. We can't look at the number 8 on the TV anymore. And that is a legendary figure that is gone, and they did as best as they could to give him the credit and the praise he deserves. He strived to earn more proof and be better when the whole NASCAR community thought the world of him. And he made that point proven. And the family showing up, Kurt, mom, dad, Samantha, Brexton, Lennox, all of them showing up was, you said it, powerful. The most powerful thing I've seen in a long time. No one would have batted an eye if they didn't showed up.
Yeah.
They still were there to grieve with everybody. We don't know Kyle Busch. We've I'm going to say we've never met Kyle Busch. Yeah, we've gotten an autograph. We haven't had a conversation with Kyle Busch.
Yeah.
And yet we all feel like we've lost somebody. They've lost a husband and a father. My daughter is 5 years old, older than Lennox. I think of what happened and I just can't stop hugging my baby and thinking of how to make her life better and be a dad like Kyle. Like, they did an excellent job this weekend, and the family of Kyle Busch are the strongest people I know, and they deserve all the praise. They need to know, and Steve O'Donnell made it clear, that even though we're just fans, we think of them as family. We will do whatever we can to help them. And I hope, like Tyler said to start this, we know NASCAR and all those drivers are family, and they're going to step up and help Brexton and help Lennox and be there for that family, and that's all that matters. And NASCAR showed on Sunday how much NASCAR is family, and that's what this sport is, and that's why we love watching it.
Yeah, it was just really powerful stuff, and we saw driver reactions all weekend. Like, one of the ones that really stood out to me is one of my favorite drivers, young Connor Zilisch, and you could tell that Zilisch really kind of looked at Kyle Busch as like a superhero, because he had multiple interviews, and every single time they interviewed him about Kyle, he was crying. He was one of the first people that really threw on his gear. He threw on his Kyle Busch number 7 Spire shirt during pre-race intros for the Truck Series race on Friday. That the race didn't end up happening until Sunday, but they did the intros on Friday. I even remember, I think they did a little interview piece on pre-race for Fox, and you can tell it's one of those. It's not a live interview. It's one of those interviews where they're like, "All right, can we get an interview with you?" And like off to the side where it's not live. That way they can, if they need to do it a couple of times, they can. And they did his interview with Zilisch, and they probably tried to interview Zilisch a couple of times. He just couldn't do it, and they eventually just interviewed him, and I just see tears literally falling off of Zilich's face, and his eyes are bloodshot red. Just really, it just really affected everybody in a very crazy way, and not a surprising way, because Kyle Busch is a Mount Rushmore guy. He's one of the best drivers in our sport, but he's also a great father, great man who did a lot of great things, not just for NASCAR, but for the world. And now he's gone, and a lot of people reacted pretty deeply about it, whether they had an extremely close relationship with him, like a Denny, whether Kyle was somebody that pretty much put them into this sport and gave them a chance, and Suarez and Bubba. And then there's drivers that didn't really even have a huge relationship with them, but looked at him like a superhero, like Lane Riggs, like Connor Zilisch, Ross Chastain. You could maybe even throw into that, And it's just really sad. It's some really sad stuff. And thoughts and prayers are out to the Bush family and everybody that was super close to him. All right. Now that we're done with the pre-race, let's talk about Prime. I want to talk about Prime, and then we'll talk about how we felt about the race and how it ended. And then, of course, we'll talk about that finish. And then we'll move on to Nashville. Prime. Prime just does it again. They're always doing it. I think they just do the best coverage. The pre-race was phenomenal. And obviously, I'm not just talking about what happened, everything with Rowdy. I'm talking about just the pre-race in general. It was very well done. They had an extremely long post-race. The post-race was like an hour and a half or 2 hours. It was very long, which I like because they get to interview everybody. They get to talk to everybody. They really get to break everything down. I always liked them doing the drink at the table post-race. They did it with Suarez this time, and it's just, I just love what Prime brings to the table. They do that commercial-free part of the program. They do a lot of great things, and I think that's a big benefit of it just being on streaming. And it just has great quality too. It's like the best looking picture too, as long as your internet isn't messing up. I think it has the best looking picture too compared to Fox and NBC and TNT. I think it has the best looking picture. I sent it to Tyler earlier because he was a Ross Chastain super fan, but I also consider him a Prime Video super fan. Tyler, how did we feel about Prime's first race of the year with NASCAR?
Just another reason for me to start the engines of let's please move everything to Prime all the time because everything else sucks. 5 races a year on Prime should be a crime.
It should
seriously, we should have the entire season on Prime. Now, from what I understand, NASCAR themselves are the ones that are handling most of the production for Prime. So I don't understand why NASCAR is suffering the rest of the year on purpose when they know Prime is the best way to go. So I don't get it. Figure out what you guys need to do for TV. Up my subscription charges, do what you need to do because I'm tired of Fox, I'm tired of TNT, I'm tired of all the rest of them. Prime is the only way to go.
I don't mind TNT. I think TNT did okay last year. Last year was their first year back in the game, and they also have a lot of like Bleacher Report and stuff like that. They have a lot of social aspects to it, social media aspects to it. So I wouldn't say I love TNT, but I don't mind TNT. Fox, I'm not a big fan of anything Fox. I'm not a big fan of the booth. I'm not a big fan of the coverage. I'm not really a big fan of anything that Fox does. And then NBC, I really quite like the NBC booth and all the people they have. I just don't think they do coverage quite the best. I would say Fox is the worst, and Prime is by far the best. And they just knocked it out of the park. I'd say once again. Cory, how do we feel about Prime being back with NASCAR? How do we feel about Prime Video's first effort of the year with the Coca-Cola 600?
It's awesome. They didn't disappoint. Prime Video is definitely where it's at for NASCAR races. I think for the future, Prime should get all of Fox's Cup races, and honestly, I think they should get all of the truck races. Imagine if all of the Truck Series races were on Prime. One, we'd probably get more viewership, and two, that production would be awesome.
It would be. I think really any of the lower series I think would have potentially, I think the most success a lower series could have if it's doing something like the O'Reilly series is doing, where it's on CW, even though the CW isn't like this big channel that literally everybody knows about, but everybody has it. You know, everybody has CW, so that makes it easily accessible, and it's in one of those lower channels, so it makes so everybody, a lot of people will see it. You know, a lot of people will see that the O'Reilly series is on. They'll potentially click on it because they're curious. Then the other form would be streaming. I think streaming would be really good for the lower series because somebody's just scrolling around on Netflix or Prime or whatever you decide to put that lower series on, and they're like, oh man, the truck series is on. This looks pretty cool. Let's throw this on. You know, I I just don't think the truck series, for example, should be on Fox Sports 1. I think it really holds it back quite a bit. I have noticed that the viewership has been up this year, but I mainly credit that towards just how many people we've had in these trucks. Like we've had Cletus race, we've had Pastrana race, 2 races now this year, and we're still early on in the year. Smoke, we had Tony Stewart out there. You know, we've had a lot of driver, like well-known drivers racing the Truck Series. Kyle Busch has raced a bunch of races this year. He's won 2 of them. We've had a lot of great racers racing in the Truck Series this year, so I think that really helps out the viewership. But I think it could be even better if it was on a Prime or something like that. So I would agree with that statement for sure. And Prime Video just does a great job. They do a great job, great coverage, pretty picture. You have all the right people involved. I wish Carl Edwards was on there every week. I remember correctly, he did every week last year, and this year it's 1 week. Then I think this week it's Mark Martin. I think is who they have this week, and it alternates between a couple of different major NASCAR people over the next couple of weeks. I would have loved for Carl to be a part of all 5 of them, but he isn't. It is what it is. Other than that, I'm quite fond of what they were able to pull off with Prime Video this past weekend for the Coca-Cola 600, even with all the crazy circumstances attached to it. But let us know your thoughts in the comments. How do you feel about Prime Video and their NASCAR coverage? All right, let's talk about our thoughts on the race itself. And then we'll get into the finish of this thing and our winner, Daniel Suarez. Overall, this race was a barn burner. It was fantastic. It was all the races that we've seen at Charlotte have been fantastic in this car, but I think this one was even better. Because we had just great tire fall off. We had strategy. We saw comers and goers. We saw passing. This reminded me of a barn burner, not just from now, because barn burners now don't compare to barn burners in the early 2000s. This felt like a barn burner straight out of like 2003. Like this just felt like a fantastic race. Unfortunately, it ended the way it did. Obviously, in my opinion, we had a great winner in Daniel Suarez just because of his connections to Rowdy and the fact that he hasn't won in so long. I thought that was a very cool way to end it. I'm also a huge Suarez fan, so I could be a little bit biased, but I thought our winner was cool, even though he might have not been the deserving winner on that day. It was a great race. It was a great race from start to almost finish in this event. Cory, I'll start with you on this one. Cory, how did we feel about the race as a whole, the 2026 edition of the Coca-Cola 600?
Honestly, that might be one of, if not my favorite race of the year so far.
I would agree.
I think it was entertaining through every single stage. Even though it was mostly Toyotas dominating the entire time and Kyle Larson in there, it was awesome because it wasn't just one of the Toyotas dominating every stage. They were all fighting each other trying to lead the race. And it made it so entertaining because each time they're trying to do a slide job, they're trying to pass on the outside, they're having runs through and you had the stage where Christopher Bell was on different tires and worked his way up. Like, it was just an insanely good competitive race, and it shows that this car has promise, even though we can talk crap about it all the time. This is the one track, Charlotte, or one of the few tracks where it looks awesome and it's just so entertaining.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy how great this car is at Charlotte and a couple of other tracks, but then just really bad at other tracks, which comes to show you that what NASCAR was doing back in the past, where they had a speedway car, a short track car, a road course car, a super speedway car that all had little bit of differences here and there. That just shows you how great that system was, because with this current generation of car, it sucks at super speedways, sucks at short tracks, sucks at road courses, but when it comes to the mile and a halves, it is awesome, which it is what it is. And we're just kind of dealing with what's been dealt here. And what was dealt on Sunday, other than obviously the way it ended, was fantastic. It was a fantastic race. And I enjoyed it so much. Such great racing. Tyler, how did we feel about the Coca-Cola 600, the World 600 as a whole?
It was a great race, like you guys said. The only thing I can really complain about, and I'll complain about it always, is the stage cautions getting in the way of the tire fall off. I mean, the tires, Goodyear finally brought us the tires we've been asking for, and it didn't matter because we had stage cautions. So, I mean, if we could just leave the car alone, take away the stage cautions, build a new car for the other tracks, everything would be great.
Everything's great. I'm wearing the Skittles hats. That works. Everything's great. Everything's great. But yeah, I agree with what you said, Tyler. We could have been even better. That would be the one knock I have on it, is if we didn't have any stage cautions, I think the race would have been even better because we could have had more strategy, more tire fall off. And honestly, there's a good chance we could have gotten in the entire race. I wouldn't guarantee that, but I think there is a chance we would have finished all 600 miles if we didn't have stage cautions, because that cuts into a lot of time with those long drawn out stage cautions because of commercial breaks and pit stops and all this stuff. They end up drawing out and being pretty long. So I think there is a decent chance if we didn't have all those stage breaks, we probably would have finished the entire race. I don't know that for sure, though, as well. But overall, great race. And we're going back to Charlotte in the fall, because they're not going to the Roval in the fall. They're going to Charlotte in the fall. I do wish they were going somewhere different, just because I want this race to just feel that much more special. But at least I know when we get back to Charlotte Motor Speedway in the fall that we're going to have a fantastic race. But let me know your thoughts in the comments. How did you feel about the Coca-Cola 600? All right, let's get to the finish and our race winner. What a finish. I'd say it was entertaining, but at the same time, obviously the driver that probably deserved to win, and that would be either Denny or Bell. I think Denny and Bell had the two best cars. Like, it was clear cut. Those were the two best cars throughout most of the day. Even during the daytime, like, Denny had a great car all day. Denny was amazing all day long. I think Bell came on a little bit stronger at the end of the night. And obviously they had some great strategy calls in there. And I know both of them really wanted to win it. They really wanted to win it for Rowdy, especially that 20 team, Adam Stevens being Christopher Bell's crew chief. He was Kyle Busch's crew chief for many years, including both championships, both Cup Series championships. Adam Stevens was his crew chief. So I know that 20 team really wanted to win bad. I know the 11 team wanted to win bad. Denny and Hamlin and Kyle Busch have the longest tenured teammate-ship. I don't know what you would necessarily call it. They're teammates longer than anybody else in the history of the sport, longer than Jeff and Jimmy, longer than Tony Stewart and Bobby Labonte, longer than all these guys. Had a longer relationship than all these drivers. So I know Denny really wanted to win that for Rowdy as well, and arguably one of them possibly deserved this win. But at the end of the race, Daniel Suarez and his crew chief, Ryan Sparks, aka Sparky, shout out Sparky, had a great race. They had overall a good race. They're running 15th to 20th all day, and just had a great call is what I meant to say, and not necessarily a great race, but they had a great call at the end of this race to get two tires, give Daniel Suarez some track position. And Suarez did everything he really needed to do. He had fantastic restarts. He didn't make any mistakes. He just kind of held his ground, and then also got a little help from the weather, because then we had some cautions at the end of this thing, because they would go green and it started raining. They threw the caution back out. It went green and it started raining. They threw the caution back out at the end of this thing. They even had lightning. They said there was lightning, and they didn't get a delay. I'm still not sure what exactly happened there, because they said there was lightning in the area, and then they didn't really do a delay. They just kept on racing, which I don't know how that works. I'm not sure why that had happened. I'm not sure. But Daniel Suarez did everything he needed to do, and got a victory, got back to victory lane. And I said it last week on the show, Tyler. Last time you called out a guy, it was Tyler Reddick. Last week you called out Daniel Suarez, and he's in victory lane. Who are you going to call out next, Tyler? Who are you going to call out next? Anybody you call out goes to victory lane, Tyler.
It's sad. It's sad world we live in.
Can you call out Connor Zilic to get his first win this week? That would be helpful. To say he's never going to win.
Who at Nashville?
Don't do it. It's forced. Don't do it. You have to speak from your heart, Tyler.
You have to speak
wrong
It's gotta be
from your
natural.
heart.
It got to be natural, right? But, so is Chris Wright going to win a race? Chris Wright?
Chris Wright's gonna win a championship.
Oh, damn it. He's going to suck
Chris
even
Wright's gonna
more.
win Chris Wright's going to win a race and then blame it on his crew chief. I couldn't have done anything, or not the crew chief. Blame everything on the spotter. Say the spotter drove the car. Spotter did it.
Chris Wright. Chris Wright. You always seem to find laughs on this program. But yeah, just Suarez gets the win. His third career victory. Of course, he won at Sonoma years ago. He won a couple years ago in one of the greatest, if not the greatest, finish in NASCAR history at Hotlanta, getting that win there, and gets his third career victory and his first win with Spire Motorsports, and gets the third. It's not just the third win in his career; it's also the third win for Spire Motorsports. Of course, they won years ago. I forget what the team was called. That I want to say it was called like Premium or something like that. I can't remember what it was called. But years ago, they won with Justin Haley with the rain shortened race at Daytona. Justin Haley won that race, and then of course Carson Hocevar at Talladega not too long ago, and now Daniel Suarez. And Daniel Suarez moves up to 10th in points. Suarez is having a fantastic year. I would make the argument possibly his best year in the Cup Series. He's sitting in a prime position to potentially make the chase. And great call from Ryan Sparks. Just a phenomenal call. Weather worked his way, and Daniel Suarez, him winning this race just meant so much to him because Kyle Busch was a big part of his career. Kyle Busch gave him some big breaks back in the day. When Suarez first came to the States, Kyle Busch was a big help to him, really getting used to the United States. Helping him out with English even a little bit here and there. It sounded like he was just really helpful to Suarez in the early portions of his career, the early parts of his career. And then they ended up being teammates later on at Joe Gibbs Racing. Rowdy meant so much to Daniel Suarez, and you could see it in that celebration because right when he got out of the car, I think NASCAR had already determined before they even stopped the cars that they were probably going to end the race just because of how late it was, how long it would take to dry the track, the potential of another cell potentially going over the racetrack and causing some rain and causing even more problems. So I think they had already determined before the cars even came on pit road that they were going to end the race right there because Suarez got out of the car and pretty much immediately you saw everybody, once it was announced that he won, everybody started, I think the camera even got hit at one point. Everybody started jumping on him and celebrating and stuff. And Suarez looks so happy, celebrating so hard. And not even a second after like celebrating that hard, like a half a second, like a couple of tenths of a second, immediately afterwards, he immediately covers his face and just starts like just bawling his eyes out, crying. You can tell how much this win meant to him. It was probably his biggest win in his career. He didn't say for sure either way, but I really feel like this win mattered more than either of those other two wins. Plus, of course, his Xfinity Series championship all those years ago for Gibbs. This just meant so much to him. It was a really great moment, and that's why I didn't really have too many problems with the finish because there's not really anybody I would have rather seen win other than Suarez. I would have loved, like, Bubba's near the top of guys I wanted to see win this race. I would have loved to see Denny. Obviously, Bell would have been cool. Byron. There's a lot of guys that would have been very cool to see win this race and pay homage to Rowdy. But Suarez is definitely near the top of that list. And it was just a really great moment for Daniel and his career, and just a great moment for Daniel, the person, as well. Just really cool to see. Really cool to see. And I want to get the boys' thoughts on this. And I'll start with Tyler because Tyler's the reason this all happened. Tyler is 100% the reason why Daniel Suarez won this race. And Tyler, how do we feel about Suarez and his victory?
Like you said, I don't think there's really any better team for it to go home to. I mean, the last number Kyle won in was the 7. The last team he won for was the Spire, and that's his old race shop and half of his race team. So, I mean, I don't think there was anywhere better for that trophy to go Sunday night than just Spire Motorsports.
Yeah, I think that's. I think there's definitely. I think Spire is probably one of the best, if not the best, place for him to go to for the win to go to. Like you were just saying, Spire Motorsports is working out of what Kyle Busch Motorsports used to be. That's Kyle Busch's old building. They purchased Kyle Busch Motorsports and the building a couple of years ago. If you saw the Spire cars, they were rocking the Kyle Busch Motorsports logos on all their cars all weekend long. And I honestly wouldn't be surprised if they do that maybe for the rest of the season, mainly just because of Jeff Dickerson. Jeff Dickerson, of course, is one of the majority owners of the race team, higher up on Spire Motorsports. And he's had a very long standing relationship with Rowdy. I want to say he was Rowdy's spotter many years ago. Like he's had a very long lasting relationship with Rowdy. One of the reasons why Rowdy has done a lot of races for Spire. Of course, Kyle Busch, like you said, Tyler won the week before at Dover for Spire in the number 7 truck. And now the next week, his mentee and probably one of his better friends in the garage, Daniel Suarez, wins in the number 7 for Spire on Sunday night in the Coca-Cola 600, which is just awesome. And then if you like, even if you want to pay, like this is kind of random, but it just made me think about this. Like if you look at hockey right now, he's from Vegas, and I think he ended up becoming a Carolina Hurricanes fan. It looks like we're going to get potentially Vegas and the Carolina Hurricanes in the Stanley Cup Finals, which is crazy. That's crazy as well. But yeah, Suarez gets the victory in an emotional celebration. He eventually did do the bow in victory lane. He didn't do it as early on as everybody else, but I think he was waiting to get that checkered flag in his hand. I think he wanted to do the. He was only going to do the because I think I saw a couple people on social media saying, did he forget to do the bow or something? And he didn't forget. I think he just wanted to he wanted to have the checkered flag in hand before he did the bow, because that was Kyle Busch's thing. He didn't usually do the bow without the flag. He needed the flag to do the bow. It was kind of the thing. So I think he was waiting on that. And it was just really great to see a team and a driver that cares so much about Rowdy get that very important victory. Cory, how do we feel about the way this race ended and Daniel Suarez getting that victory?
It was awesome, man. It's kind of storybook that he got his last win, his 69th win in the truck series in a Spire truck. And then next week, it's the same number, the number 7, to win in honor of him on Sunday. Like, you can't write it up any better. And it's also going back to Kyle Busch Motorsports. Like, yeah, you just can't write it any better. And then Daniel Suarez being kind of a prodigy, learning how to rate, getting tips and calling Kyle Busch every Wednesday, he said, when he was coming into NASCAR. And I think Daniel Suarez had a story when he finally beat Kyle Busch one time. Kyle Busch said, okay, no more calls on Wednesday. You know, it's just having that type of relationship, you know, it was just storybook, man. I'm happy for Suarez. Suarez needed that. We talked about it literally last week that, like, what if Kyle Busch replaces Suarez at Spire? And
Yeah.
then within a week, it's just a totally different story that Daniel Suarez wins in honor of Kyle Busch. It's just, you couldn't have written it any better. And I'm so happy for Spire and Daniel Suarez to honor Kyle Busch the way he did.
Yeah, it was a wonderful moment, and they already have the car on the shop floor in what used to be Kyle Busch Motorsports, now known as Spire Motorsports. Has it on the showroom floor, so fans in the Charlotte area, if you want to go see Daniel Suarez's race-winning car, go over to Spire Motorsports. It has the number 8 on there. It has the KBM on the back. Wins the Coca-Cola 600 in a very emotional overall weekend, but an emotional victory for Daniel Suarez, who looked at Kyle Busch as a big inspiration and help to his career, because that's why Suarez and Bubba were so hurt. I feel like the most, not just because they were friends with them, because they feel like both of them feel like they wouldn't be where they're at right now if it wasn't because of Kyle Busch. Who knows? Maybe Bubba Wallace and Daniel Suarez never make it to Cup without Kyle Busch. Maybe it doesn't happen. Who knows? So really storybook ending to that race. Almost felt like fate the way that race ended and the way everything went down. And Suarez, the driver of the number 7 for Spire Motorsports, gets the win in honor of Rowdy Busch, Wild Thing, Kyle Thomas Busch. All right. Also let us know your thoughts in the comments about Suarez getting his 3rd victory in his career. Also the 3rd victory for Spire and him winning it for Rowdy. Let us know your thoughts in the comments. All right. And that will have us actually move on to Nashville. As we do have Nashville Super Speedway this weekend, NASCAR is going to Nashville once again. Unfortunately, it's not the fairgrounds, it's the Super Speedway that they're going to. So I'm going to quickly go through the weekend schedule, the facts, the potential weather, and of course, some notable entries for the upcoming weekend at Nashville Super Speedway. All right, let's first go through the weekend schedule for Nashville Super Speedway. You're most likely watching this on Friday, May 29th. So today, Craftsman Truck Series practice starts at 4 p.m., but coverage doesn't start till 4:30 p.m. on Fox Sports 1. That first half hour of Truck Series practice on Fox Sports 1 will be first things first, and then on Fox Sports 2, you have IndyCar Series practice. I don't like it, but it is what it is. Can't watch the practice anywhere. At 5 p.m., we have Truck Series qualifying, so immediately following practice on Fox Sports 1. At 8 p.m., we have the Allegiance 200, the Truck Series race on Fox Sports 1. And then we move over to Saturday. Starting at 2 p.m., we have O'Reilly Auto Parts Series practice on the CW app, immediately followed by qualifying. And then at 4:30 p.m., we have Cup Series practice on Prime Video, immediately followed by qualifying. And then at 7:30 p.m., we have the Sports Illustrated Resorts 250 on the CW. I didn't even know Sports Illustrated had their own resorts, so that's kind of interesting. And then on Sunday, May 31st at 7 p.m., we have the Cracker Barrel 400 at Nashville Super Speedway, and of course, that is on Prime Video. I would also like to note that the guest analyst this week looks to be Mark Martin, so that will be a lot of fun seeing Mark talking on TV. That's always a good time. And now we'll go through the weekend and track facts. It is the Cracker Barrel 400 at Nashville Super Speedway. The stages end at lap 90 for stage 1, lap 185 for stage 2, and then, of course, it is a 300-lap event. Nashville Super Speedway is actually not located in Nashville, just outside of Nashville in Lebanon, Tennessee. The length of the track, most people think it's 1.5 miles. It's actually a little bit shorter. It's 1.33 miles. It's a tri-oval concrete racetrack. The first Cup Series race actually came on June 20th, 2021, and the first winner of that race ended up being Kyle Larson, Young Money. The active win leader, we have 5 drivers currently tied for most wins. Everybody has only 1 win at the racetrack. And then, of course, last year's winner was Ryan Blaney. And then the notable entries for this weekend in the Trucks, O'Reilly Series, and in the Cup Series. The Truck Series continues to put out a great entry list. You have Brandon Jones and William Sawalich both racing for Tricon Garage in the number 1 and in the number 5. And we look over at Nice Motorsports. We actually are going to have Stefan Parsons driving the number 4 for Nice. Parsons, I think, is a pretty good driver who hasn't really had a great opportunity. So this is a really good opportunity for Stefan Parsons. We'll actually have Connor Zilic being a spotter, which is funny because Parsons is usually Zilic's spotter. And then, of course, Ross Chastain making another start. He's been running about everything he can this year, running the number 45 for Nice. We look over at Spire Motorsports. We have Raja Karuth driving the number 7. He did win this race last year. And then in the 77, we have Jesse Love. And then we look over in the number 25 for Ram Colleague. We have Carson Ferguson making another start. They're quite fond of Carson Ferguson. I'm really impressed on how much they're putting him in the truck. We have Tony Breidinger making a start in the number 27. And then we have Parker Retzloff actually racing a Toyota for Stuart Friesen. Maybe a glimpse into the potential 2027 for Retzloff. Maybe he makes a move to Toyota. And then the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series, we have Raja Karuth this week in the number 32. So in the number 88, we'll actually have Kyle Larson. And then, of course, everyone's favorite, in the number 33 for Richard Childress Racing, we'll have Cletus McFarland making a start this weekend. And then we look over at the Cup Series. We have Austin Hill in the number 33, was the number 8. He'll be driving the 33 for the second straight week. And then, of course, in the 67, making another start in the Cup Series is Heim Time, Corey Heim for 2311 Racing. Let's look at the weekend weather report. It looks like tonight we're going to have thunderstorms, it looks like, that could affect the Truck Series race. Looks like we might have rain and thunderstorms throughout the day, potentially. So everything Truck Series could potentially be rained out here today. On Saturday, it looks like it's going to be probably a clear day. Potential rain at night. All 3 races are at night. Potential rain at night, but looks like we could potentially get everything in on Saturday. And then on Sunday at the moment doesn't look great, looking like we could potentially get thunderstorms in the daytime and then just some typical rain showers during potentially the Cup Series race, the Cracker Barrel 400. So another potential rain-filled weekend in Nashville. All right, now that we've gone through the schedule, the facts, the weather, notable entries, and all that jumbo over there for Nashville, I kind of want to give. I think me and the boys want to give some thoughts on Nashville Super Speedway, Nashville with NASCAR, Nashville Super Speedway. I'm quite fond of the racetrack. I wouldn't say it's like my favorite racetrack. I don't think it necessarily produces the greatest racing, but the main reason I like Nashville because it is so much different from a lot of these tracks. First of all, it's not purely a mile and a half. It's not a pure mile and a half. It's a little shorter than a mile and a half. Plus, it's just very different. It's a very different racetrack. There's not really any racetracks like Nashville Super Speedway. It's this huge, huge concrete racetrack. I always describe it as like Dover and Las Vegas had a baby. That's the best way I can really describe it. Las Vegas Motor Speedway, Dover Motor Speedway had a baby, and it became Nashville Super Speedway. And that's the best way I can describe it. It's a very different racetrack. It eats up tires to a certain, not as bad as some racetracks, but I would say it eats up tires. I'm curious on what tire Goodyear brings to the racetrack. But one of the main things I like about Nashville Super Speedway, just the vibe. It seems like the fans have a good time there. It seems like a great vibe. Of course, it's not in actual Nashville. It's a little bit further away from Nashville, in Lebanon, Tennessee. It's a little bit further away, but it seems like the fans are always super hyped up for it. I really want them to go to the Nashville Fairgrounds if that's possible. I would love to see the Cup Series there within the next couple of years. I just think that would be so awesome. It's such a great racetrack. It's right there near the Strip in Nashville. It's very easy accessible for a lot of people. But obviously the future of that racetrack in general is up in the air with everything going on with the fairgrounds and then the local community and how they're trying to get rid of the track. So who knows if they ever go to the fairgrounds. But NASCAR has had a great relationship with Nashville. I think they did the awards banquet there a couple of years ago. It's also usually, that area is usually one of the most viewed areas for NASCAR. We get a lot of viewers from the Nashville area, from Tennessee. So I would just really like to see NASCAR have a footprint in Nashville. So we continue to go to the Nashville Super Speedway, and I hope it eventually goes to the fairgrounds. And I'm hoping we get some great racing. I really expect some great racing from Nashville Super Speedway. Let's keep this up and continue some good races. I'll send it to Cory. Cory, how do we feel about the Nashville Super Speedway and NASCAR with Nashville?
I'm excited for it. I think the Nashville race hasn't disappointed the past few years. I think we're also a sucker for NASCAR under the lights, and Nashville usually always ends under the lights. So
Yeah.
I think I'm excited for it. Always love seeing the cars during the nighttime. And yeah, I think other than that 5 overtime finish 2 years ago, it's been great. So I'm excited for it.
Yeah, of course, we had that like crazy finish a couple years ago that Cory was just mentioning, where we had a whole bunch of overtimes. We had Zane Smith almost win a race for Spire. I think he was racing for Spire at the time in that 71 car. We almost had him win a race in that bright pink old Better Health machine. I remember that car. I think Logano won that race, right? Am I wrong? Was it Logano that won that race, right? Cory?
Logano in 2024 and Ryan Blaney in 2025.
Okay, yeah. But yeah, I think Nashville puts on good racing. I wouldn't say it's one of the best tracks on the schedule per se, but I do think it puts on good racing. It also provides a much different product. Like you can't go to like your notes for Vegas or for Kansas or something. You can't go to your notes at one of those racetracks and just copy paste or at least use that as a base. You really can't. It's just it's a very different racetrack. There's no track like Nashville Super Speedway. So I'm a big fan of having it on the schedule because of just it being different. I want some different tracks in there. I don't want just the same cookie cutter tracks because NASCAR got into this thing a while ago, and obviously they're not the same now. Obviously Charlotte, Texas, and Atlanta are quite different now, but there was one point in NASCAR when all three of those tracks were pretty much the same thing. They were very similar. Obviously, there were slight differences, but they ran all very similar a number of years ago. So I want NASCAR to just continue to have different sort of racetrack, different sort of venues that provide a different set of skills, not just from the drivers, but also the race teams and figuring out how to make these cars faster, make these cars better. So I'm a big fan of Nashville Super Speedway in that respect. Tyler, how do we feel about Nashville Super Speedway? How do we feel about Nashville in general with NASCAR?
It's always a good time. Like you said, it's a very different track. So there's no really going back to your notes to see what you've done through the year. It's really just get out there and see what you can produce.
Yeah, I would agree 100%. It's very different. And I think that provides potential of an underdog. I could see an underdog potentially competing for a win this weekend with that being thrown in. You just need to hit on that setup perfectly, and you could potentially have a phenomenal night. Like if something like that happened, it would kind of would remind me of when they were going to Kentucky. If some of you remember Kentucky, they were going to Kentucky, and I want to say it was the second or third year. Well, actually, no, I might be getting confused with Chicagoland, actually. I'm going to take that back. I think I'm actually getting confused with Chicagoland, but I always remember David Rudiman taking a dub. I want to say that was actually Chicagoland, so I'm actually probably wrong. So that my whole point is thrown out. It's all thrown out on that. But nonetheless, I can definitely see an underdog potentially taking the dub this weekend. It could possibly happen. Who knows? Who could take the dub this weekend at Nashville Super Speedway? All I know is whoever wins any of the races this weekend, I want to see those guitars smashed. Y'all better smash them guitars for Rowdy, y'all. You better smash them guitars. I'd be very hyped to see that. That would make an instant fan out of me if any of these drivers do that. Like instant fan right here if they did that. But let us know your thoughts in the comments. How do you feel about Nashville Super Speedway in this upcoming weekend? Let us know in the comments. All right, and that will lead us to, of course, the finisher of our show, as it is every week. It is, of course, our weekly picks. Post Coca-Cola 600, this is our weekly picks look. Currently, Cory is last with 40 points, but he did get second place out of us last week. He got 2 points for second, plus a bonus point for a top 10 with the William Byron selection, getting his 7th top 10 of the year. 40 points of the year for Cory. He will actually pick first, with him having the lowest amount of points. Then we go over to Tyler, who is second in the standings. And I don't know what's going on, Tyler. When it rains, it pours. Tyler has been by far the most consistent out of all three of us, not just this year, but last year. But over the last month and a half, he's actually produced some bad finishes. And this past weekend in the Coca-Cola 600, out of all the time we've done weekly picks, we've done, let's see, let me think about it. We've done 40. We've done almost 60. We've done almost 55 races. We've done 53. We've done 53 races with weekly picks. And Tyler just now got his first ever DNF with the selection of Chase Elliott, who of course finished behind the wall in this one. He only got a single point for the week, so he goes from 42 to 43 points. Then I decided to pick Dennis the Menace, Denny Hamlin. He could have potentially gotten me a win, but he didn't get me the win. He got me a top 5, my 7th top 5, my 8th weekly win, but still no actual wins on the year. So I ended up getting 2 bonus points for the top 5, plus 3 for the weekly win, putting me at 5 points for the week, which puts me at 54 points. So Cory will pick first with 40 points, Tyler second with 43 points, and then I pick last with 54 points heading into Nashville Super Speedway. And this also continues our Series of 8. Of course, we took a 2-week break from our Series of 8 because we did have a Crown Jewel race plus a special event, and you get to pick whoever you want for those sort of races. I would also like to note that I did take my special event / Crown Royal Hail Mary pick this last week with Michael McDowell, and it almost worked out. Couldn't get any points. I think pretty much any time any of us have really picked the Hail Mary, other than of course Cory with Hocevar earlier on the year, and no one's gonna pick Hocevar anymore. I'm not gonna let that happen. But he got bonus points for that, and I think all of us have came pretty close to getting points. I know Tyler almost got points with Gregson in Dover, and I think we've all just came really close to getting those bonus points, but just haven't quite gotten them. So this will lead us right into our weekly picks. Cory gets the first pick. Cory, who is your pick to win this weekend at Nashville Super Speedway?
I'm going to go with one of the drivers that's been one of the two longest teammates in NASCAR history and go with Denny Hamlin to win in honor of Kyle Busch and break the guitar.
Oh, that would be awesome. That would be completely awesome. And Cory with the curveball. He asked me before we got started, who should I pick, Tyler Reddick or Christopher Bell? And I told him Tyler Reddick, and then he's like, you know what? I'm gonna pick Denny Hamlin. Give me, give me Denny Hamlin.
Got him.
a plot twist, if you will. All right, and that will lead us to Tyler. Tyler, who is your pick to win at Nashville Super Speedway?
I'm going to take Tiny Kyle.
Oh, Kyle Larson. So Tyler here is going to have the driver of the number 5, Tiny Kyle Larson, young money, getting back to victory lane at Nashville Super Speedway. The longest winless streak of his Hendrick Motorsports career. So I'd say that's probably a good pick. I'd say that's probably a pretty good pick. At least a very safe pick, I would like to add. I want to double check, make sure on the drivers I've taken so far. Okay. All right. So yeah, my pick. This is kind of a difficult one. I'd say it's a little bit of a difficult one to make, just because Nashville, I feel like, is a more unpredictable racetrack. I just think it's so much different from a lot of other tracks on the schedule. So I might be a little bit of a surprise here for both of you, but I'm actually gonna pick somebody that's actually been pretty consistent this year, and the Toyotas look very strong. He overall had a good day on Sunday. Definitely didn't get the finish he probably wanted. Maybe could have gotten I think he probably deserved a little bit better of a finish. But I'm actually going to pick the driver of the number 54, Ty Gibbs. Baby Gibbs. I'm going to take Ty Gibbs to win at Nashville this weekend. So just to go over our picks one more time, I've picked the driver of the number 54, Ty Gibbs, to win at Nashville this weekend. Cory has decided to pick the driver of the number 11, Denny Hamlin, to win at Nashville. And then, of course, Tyler, already forgot who you picked. Who did you pick? I already forgot.
Kyle.
Tiny Kyle.
Tiny Kyle. Kyle Larson, the driver. I don't know how I forget. How do you forget Kyle Larson? What the hell? Driver of the number 5, Kyle Larson, to win this weekend at Nashville Super Speedway. Me and Cory have already used up our Hail Mary bonus, so we can't use it, but I will send it to Tyler. Tyler, are you going to use your Hail Mary bonus this week?
Catch me in Michigan.
In Michigan? Oh, damn, he has a plan. I'm not going to let you use Hocevar if that's your plan. That's not happening. You're not using them. So get over it. Get over yourself, all right? No Hocevars.
Come on, he's from Kalamazoo. Kalamazoo.
I don't care.
Noah Gregson's going to get a top 10 and you're going to regret not doing it.
That would leave Tyler heartbroken. He'd be so happy, but he'd be like, why did I didn't pick him? That's funny. All right, well, that'll do it for this week's edition of Hit the Pacecar. Would like to dedicate this episode to my favorite driver of all time, one of the GOATs of our sport, Shrub, Wild Thing, Rowdy, Kyle Thomas Busch. Rest in peace at the age of 41. We miss you, Rowdy. We're gonna miss seeing you every Friday, Saturday, Sunday. We're gonna miss you out there. We're gonna miss that bow, and we're gonna miss all your crazy interviews. So I would like to dedicate this episode to Rowdy Busch. I would also like to note this week you've noticed there's maybe been a couple of things added to the show. I am making some changes a little bit. I haven't been as active as I would like to be on my Trackside Larry YouTube page. Of course, some of you may follow me over there. I haven't been as active as I'd want to be over the last couple of weeks. Just really kind of been out of it and just not really in the mood to really do any of this sort of content or sort of stuff. But I have decided over these I've thought about it for a couple of days now. I'm going to pretty much end all my shows that I have on the Trackside Larry page. I'm going to probably make one weekly show where I'm just talking about different things. I might occasionally have my night videos if there's a crazy thing that happens. But other than that, I'm planning on turning my Trackside Larry page into a Kyle Busch historian page. I'm going to start going through. I don't know when my first video for that will come out because I got to do a lot of research and maybe even try to talk to some people, call up racetracks and stuff like that. I'm going to have to really figure out some things, but I really want to put some work into this because I think Rowdy deserves it. I'm going to turn the Trackside Larry page into a Kyle Busch historian page, very similar to what Matt Martin does for his dad, Mark Martin, with the Mark Martin archives. I'm going to try to do something very similar to that, and that's going to become the Trackside Larry page. Of course, like I said, there's probably going to be a weekly show talking about some general topics. Not sure what day of the week that show would end up being on. I'll probably put it out on like Thursday or Fridays or something like that. Really haven't thought that much into it, and I'll probably do a video this week. Not sure. Like I said, there's some things I need to figure out. There's graphics I need to make. There's things because I'm shifting that YouTube page completely. So follow me over there on Trackside Larry if you want to learn some stuff about Kyle Busch and just general history too, because I'm going to be doing some other history videos as well. Some of you have seen my NASCAR Mount Rushmore videos. I'm going to try to get back into doing a couple of those because I haven't done those the last couple of weeks as well. Just really been off my game, not feeling it at all. But on the Trackside Larry page, that's going to become Kyle Busch Central at this point. It's Rowdy Nation over there. So anybody that loves Rowdy or wants to learn more about Rowdy, go check out Trackside Larry. But that will do it for this week's edition of Hit the Pacecar. Whether you're watching on YouTube or listening on Spotify, we would appreciate a like, follow, comment, subscribe, share, do whatever you need to do. Before we head out, I do want to give it to the Pacecar boys for last word. Cory, anything you got to say to the people before we head out?
Thoughts and prayers to the Busch family. Hug your loved ones. Let them know you love them. And have a good week.
Tyler, is there anything you got to say to the people before we head out for this week?
Take care of yourselves, boys. Stop dicking around. Stop acting like everything's all good all the time. I know this made me wake up and take myself to the doctor this week, so definitely take care of yourselves and things.
Yeah, Tyler here took himself to the doctor as well. So it's something you need to do. If you feel like there's something wrong with you, seek out some help, whether that's physical or mental or any of that stuff. Go do that. But for now, that will end this week's edition of Hit the Pacecar. So I'm Trackside Larry. Those are the Pacecar boys. And what I would usually end it with is we're saying peace, but we're gonna do a new thing now, where it's I'm Trackside Larry. They're the Pacecar boys, and be a badass today and get rowdy.